To the live news conference here with Metro Police at that police officer involved shooting with that man, 37-year-old, shot and killed on I-65. Let's listen in. That's right. Don Aaron, public information officer.
Before 2 o'clock this afternoon, a Tennessee Highway Patrol trooper was traveling northbound on I-65 when he saw a man sitting on the guardrail on the shoulder of the interstate. The trooper stopped to see what was going on with the pedestrian and ultimately had the goal of getting the guy off the interstate, trying to give him a ride away from the shoulder. The trooper engaged in a conversation with the individual, actually learned his name, and as they were very close to the state trooper's car, the individual kind of pushed away from the trooper and produced a box cutter, pulled the box cutter. The trooper called Metro Police for assistance, and as Metro officers were coming to assist the trooper, a member of the Mount Juliet Police Department, off duty, who was traveling northbound on I-65, saw what was taking place and stopped. The trooper and the Mount Juliet officer engaged in dialogue with the man, trying to de-escalate the situation. Actually, that took place for about 30 minutes. Constant communication, talking to the individual, trying to de-escalate, trying to get him to surrender, go with them to get off the interstate. The man was holding a box cutter in his left hand. His right hand was in his pocket. Metro officers arrived after about 10 minutes or so as this dialogue continued, being led by the Mount Juliet officer. At around 2:30, some 30 minutes into it, as the officers are continuing to talk to him, suddenly he pulled his right hand out of his pocket, holding a shiny silver cylindrical object. The officers, not knowing what that was, and given his very abrupt movement, kind of aiming something toward the officers fired. A total of 9 law enforcement personnel fired on the individual, 6 Metro Police, 2 THP, and the Mount Juliet officer. The individual was taken to a local hospital where he was pronounced dead. The Tennessee Bureau of Investigation will be conducting the full investigation into the officer-involved shooting in this situation.
How long did this last from beginning to end?
Metro Police received the call for assistance from the THP at 1:55, so it was shortly before 2 o'clock when the troopers saw the man sitting on the guardrail of I-65 North, right across the median there.
What was that silver object?
Well, I don't know yet what that silver object was. It was not a firearm. Understand that several Metro officers had formed a perimeter trying to assist. As the dialogue continued, the dialogue with the Mount Juliet officer was to de-escalate the situation, have the man understand that they wanted to help him, just get him off the interstate. The box cutter remained in his left hand, and that right hand was in the pocket. The officers obviously did not know what could have been in that right hand pocket, and it was about 30 minutes into it when he abruptly pulled his hand out of his pocket and directing it, outstretching his arm toward law enforcement personnel, and they saw that shiny object, again not knowing what it was, and they fired.
Can you tell us his name?
We don't have his name to release at this point, pending next of kin notification. He is a 37-year-old local individual.
Is this individual known to Metro Police? Was this individual known to Metro Police or any of these agencies before today?
He has been arrested in the past by Metro Police, yes.
Can you speak to the fact that this took place in the middle of the interstate? There were lines of cars, of onlookers, bystanders. I imagine that that's unusual for a standoff situation. Can you just speak to that aspect of it, that several people witnessed this?
Well, the circumstances of this are unusual. A man sitting on the guardrail of the interstate and a trooper stops to offer assistance. That was the reason for the law enforcement contact with the man. The state trooper wanted to help him, give him a ride off the interstate for his own safety. We all know the pedestrians on the interstate are very hazardous to both motorists and themselves. And through the conversation, I think the trooper believed that this was going to be okay. And it was the pushing away from the trooper and then the producing of the box cutter that escalated it up to a greater law enforcement response. The Mount Juliet officer who was in traffic saw some of this and went to assist. And you're right, there were a lot of people on the interstate at that time of day, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, who were traveling both northbound and southbound. Northbound traffic stopped, and southbound traffic had to be stopped for a while as well.
Did you guys try to taser a non-lethal weapon before firing?
There was no tasers were deployed. As far as discharging, a officer did have a taser on standby, but in the situation, once the shiny metal object or the shiny cylindrical object was seen, the officers fired, again, not knowing what that was. And they were firing in defense of themselves, not knowing what potential threat could have been in that right hand as it quickly emerged out of the pocket.
Our section is counting 36 shots. Is that accurate?
I don't know.
And in conversations with this man, was he giving any sort of ideations of self-harm, anything like, I mean, do we know anything about his intention of sitting on the guard?
No, the Mount Juliet officer had the bulk of the conversation with him, and he's going to be interviewed, obviously, by the TBI to get the full extent of what the context of the conversation was. I know some of our officers were unable to hear because of, obviously, all the traffic noise that you're hearing now.
Does he live around here? Did he say how long he had been walking up the interstate? Or?
I don't know that. I know he's a local man. I'm not sure where he was living at the moment. We'll be finding out more about him as the time goes on.
Is there body camera footage of him?
There is. For Metro Police, there is.
Will that be released later?
Yes, as we typically do. Okay? Thanks.
Listening to Don Aaron, PIO, Public Information Officer for Metro Police, trying to explain what went down and why the shooting there. An officer involved standoff here with a man, 37-year-old man, shot and killed on I-65. That traffic closed in the northbound lanes and still very slow in the southbound lanes. We're going to continue to stay on top of this. We'll be right back with more news after this.